Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Long Walk Podcast with your girl Haas, where we talk about wellness, creativity, and other musings from an elder millennium. Your girl is older, wiser, stronger, and I know you are too. Today's topic: don't brand me, living in the age of influence. I wonder if that's a little bit much. I I don't know. It's a little, let me tell you what I'm about to say. I don't know. But that's what came to mind with this topic, just talking about branding and who we are in this age of influencers and influence. And I think it's something to think about. I would say that I'm calling it the age of influence, but influencers have always existed in some capacity. Branding has always existed in some capacity. I just think the influx of personalized branding is new, or at least to this extent is new. And I bring it up and I want to talk about it because honestly, I always think about it, but I also listen to a bit of a podcast talking about your personal brand. I won't name it. And I get a lot of what they were saying about how you need to build your personal brand. And I wouldn't say I'm against it. I got thoughts, you guys. I got some thoughts. This has always been something that I've had to think about and see how to make it work for me because I did music for a while, for quite a long time. I don't even want to say it past tense, but I've done music for quite some time. And the question for people was always about my brand. Who am I? And I I've always struggled with that because I think sometimes people create a reputation for you and the question is, do you become that, or do you lean into that, or do you push against it if that's not who you really are? And and let's say the opposite. Maybe you're just being who you are, but then someone sees it as a brand, and it can create, at least from my thinking, it can create a sense of duality. That thing that was just you now becomes an outward kind of commodity. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, frankly, it is. It becomes a commodity. So it's you, but it's also not you. And I've always struggled with that because I think I think I've always wanted to make sure that I live my life as authentically as possible. And that's not to say that people who have their own brand, personal brand, aren't authentic. I just, for me, feel that it's tough to navigate and stay grounded when who you are is something that you have to sell or use to influence. And that, like I said, has always been a struggle for me. I just think I'm trying to like get my thoughts together on how I'd like to say this. I think sometimes, going back to the start of my previous thought, which I don't think I really quite finished clearly, is if someone just believes who you are by the few moments they have with you, or how you appear, and you don't match that, you could be harming your brand that you didn't even create. You see? And I can say from my own experience that that has happened for me. I think, you know, and people always talk about introverts and extroverts, and I know it's the conversations are oversaturated, but this is a bit of my point. I'm a very, very introverted person. But at the time, and still to some extent today, I love to perform. That's how I express myself. And sometimes when you like to perform and you're also deeply introverted, that just seems a bit of a contradiction. And so my personality, maybe on stage, does not match my personality outside of that. Or, I'm not as sociable when I'm not performing. Actually, I can be socially anxious. And I think that can throw people for a loop, because even with that, you have introverts, and then you think introverts are shy, and not all introverts are shy. And then that throws someone for another loop. And I bring this up because for me, it seems like a clear way to express how your reputation, or just how someone's not even reputation, just how someone sees you can be, oh, this person's thing is this. This is what they represent. This is their brand. And then that's not you at all. And for some people, that's fine. For others, like myself, that's hard to navigate and hard to commit to and hard to maintain, because you don't want to let anyone down. So you see me as this extroverted person, and I'm just saying, like, when I did music on stage, and that's your expectation when I get off that stage. And I'm so thankful you're here. I'm thankful you're listening to my music. I'm thankful that you took time out of your day to see me. And I come down and I let you down. And that was never my intent, you know? And that spreads. Oh, I don't know. There's something about her that's inauthentic. But the thing is, it's just, is it inauthentic, or is it just not a match to what you represent? And if you try to be more of who you are all the time, then maybe you don't get the opportunity to be on that stage or write that book or make those clothes or sell, or rather sell those clothes, because you're not matching. And I think the difference today is, or rather in the past, is that there were so many hands involved in folks branding, and there weren't, and the idea of branding was much more aligned with the idea of a product, the idea of an actual product, a tangible product, or a business, and not necessarily a person. And I'm thinking about this so much because some of the things stated in the podcast I listened to, uh, there were moments where I'm trying not to give it away. The podcaster and their guest kind of discussed like how you should look, and even how, if you're remote, what your home should look like while you're remote. And it was uncomfortable to hear, because I'm just like, where is the line? Okay, yes, your home should be clean and well taken care of, but I mean, and I say should be, everybody's got a life that's doing its thing. You do what you can the best way you can. But I think you would never have that expectation if the person wasn't remote. And so, why are we now including all this outside stuff to represent that person when the person is right there, and what you need from the person is right there, and that person is giving that? And should that person lose out on opportunities because there wasn't an outward aesthetic, when really we're talking about their home, didn't match your expectations? So now a home is a part of the brand, and it's just like, where is the line? And maybe if there was less focus on the outer parts what someone is looking like or showing, and more about the person, then, you know, a lot more people would have an opportunity for true and real success. Because in my mind, if I'm a person who has to think about all these other things I never had to think about before in order to matter in something I'm already doing well in, how do I stay grounded? How do I how do I keep the focus on the thing that I'm doing? How do I keep the focus on that work or that creativity? How do I do that when I'm double thinking all the time? Because what if what's behind me in the background that you can see is not what you envision for the kind of person I am? And so now that kind of takes me down a notch. Now, and now you're looking at my work through that lens, So I don't know. It just it threw me off. It kind of rubbed me wrong. And it probably, if I'm honest, it's probably a little bit it's a a bit of a pain point for me. Because I do think that that's a lot of my experience of me just not matching a brand that I didn't really get to create. And when I try to create my own personal brand and it's not a match, it can become a bit off putting, And I think it can be off putting because we're just living the life of expectations from others that we don't know. So it's a race you can't win or is ever changing. And I tie that in. So yeah, to me in my mind, it's I hope this makes sense, I hope it doesn't sound a little clunky or confusing, but I think about this in the terms of personal branding, and I think about this in terms of influencers. Okay, so you find things that you have interest in and you show it to the world, but like, how do you keep that space between you, the you part, decided to share this thing with the world, and now people take to that? And how do you make sure that the next thing you show is because it's something that is for you, something that was of interest to you that you wanted to share again? I think the first time, second time, the 20th, 30th time, you can probably pull that off. But I think after a while, just there's gonna be a space of dissonance because your audience will now have a hand in deciding what you really shared, and that's inadvertently or blatantly, so that switches something. So it's like you're the influencer and so are the people that you are influencing. And so how does that play into what your voice looks like, what your presence looks like? I get concerned about that because I think that's what we're missing in society is these authentic relationships and connections, and the willingness to be more vulnerable and transparent. And I think we're losing that, because not to say that there aren't people who celebrate that or showcase that through their work, but I do think that it can become a bit performative because you're trying to maintain your brand. Because when who you are, when who you are becomes a product, when who you are is how you eat, when who you are is how you eat, who you are has to become a little bit more malleable. And I'm saying malleable, and that's not necessarily a bad thing as long as it's a part of your choice and a part of your vision. And I think that's something I will always struggle with, even with this podcast now. How do I share my thoughts with you, get you to share your thoughts with me in a way that feels really fresh and true and transparent and honest, and actually get heard? I don't really know. I don't really know. I just know I keep trying, you know. I just know that I can't possibly be the only one who wants to exist in my fullness and connect with others in the same way. But in this age, I do think it's hard. I do think that sometimes it feels like I need some kind of gimmick or some kind of way to draw others in that may not feel akin to who I am. But, I don't really want to do that. I'm hoping I don't have to, and maybe that means not every single person listens to me. But that's okay, because if I'm me, then I probably shouldn't relate to every single person. If we're all being ourselves, then we're not for everybody. And that's absolutely fine. I want us to think about that more, about when we think about our personal brand, that we make sure the personal part is still there. That the personal part has as much of a say as the brand part. That we maintain the belief that we'll find our people and our people will find us. That's what I'm hoping for. And that, there's nothing wrong with an influencer. Just make sure that you're not always being influenced. That there is a voice inside that is just as big, if not bigger. So, those are my thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts. You can always find me on Instagram at The Long Walk Podcast, Twitter and YouTube at Hasina Music, and Facebook at Hasina. Thank you for listening to The Long Walk. I so much appreciate it. I look forward to continuing this walk with you. See you soon. One love.